Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is the kickoff for the new series on my channel. I'm starting every Tuesday called Tuesday Talks. This is essentially a series for every week. I want you guys to either give me a topic or I will just talk about a topic so that you are able to get to know me a little bit better, because I think that's really important when you are supporting someone on the internet, to try to get to know them, who they are, and know that you're supporting a person that you want to support, which I think you should because I think I'm really nice. Anyways, today's video is going to be about my high school experience, which honestly is not long ago. I'm only 18 years old. I did graduate high school a year early, which of course I will talk about. And my high school years were rough for me, and I think that my high school experience is not typical. So if you are watching this video and you're going into high school, please don't worry. But I do want to talk about that because it was one of the most recent experiences in my life and one of the most difficult experiences that I've gone through thus far. Definitely not the most, because I have been through the rigmarole, or whatever the heck the word is, but I've been through it. So I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about that. If my light fluctuates throughout the video, I do apologize. My ring light essentially shuts down when a power surge goes through, and the AC keeps going on and off, so I'm sorry. Anyways, that's what the video is going to be about, so let's go ahead and get into it. So to sort of start off with my high school experience story, it's important to kind of backtrack to do a very short synopsis of my middle school, which I think is very fair. Middle school is right after my mom passed away, and so the first day of school I actually went to a different chartered middle school, which was like 95% white people. Everyone was pretty high income and everyone had really nice things, which was not something that I felt that I matched with. I was low income at the time because we went from 2 incomes to 1. I didn't have very nice things because we could not afford it, and I don't know, I didn't fit in with those kids. The elementary school I went to was increasingly becoming more Hispanic, which is not something that I think should dictate how like the incomes and how classy the school is, but it is how I identified with. So I was raised with a different culture than the middle school I was set to go to, if that makes sense. And so I went there for literally one day. It was a really nice charter school. You have to take a test to get into, you have to do interviews and all that. I went there for one day and I told my dad, I don't like this school. I don't feel like I fit in here. I don't know anybody, and this just isn't what I'm used to. And so he totally understood. This was definitely right during a really difficult period in my life. I had just gotten my first period 6 months after my mom died. My mom had just died, and I was going into middle school, and that was really difficult. The story with my elementary to middle school was that I was used to being around a different sort of culture and different people with different backgrounds, which was something that I identified with more because most of my friends were also low income and most of them were also just single parent. So going into a school where that wasn't the case for most kids, where nobody could identify with my struggles, it was really difficult. And so I went there for one day. I ended up switching to the middle school that my 2 older siblings went to, as well as where all of my elementary school friends were going. So this made it a lot easier. I literally just transferred the next day and I started my classes, and I was already just put into honors classes. I was super happy. I was taking the smart kid classes like I always wanted to, and that I was better fit in, and I had a lot more friends. And so my middle school years were actually really good. I had straight A's. I did have attendance problems, which I will also get into, but I had good grades. I got Student of the Year my 8th grade. At the end of the year, when we did the awards ceremony, I got Student of the Year in every subject except science. And science is actually my favorite subject, which sucks, but my teacher actually told me that they had to have one teacher not give me an award because it would have been kind of screwed up. Anyways, if that is not a precursor enough to my high school years, then I was a total nerd. I was a straight A student. I loved doing work. I would always pay attention in class. I took great notes. I did my assignments quickly. I always had my homework done. I was the type of student, if I didn't have my homework done, I'd literally miss school the next day because I was so afraid of the disappointment I would feel in myself for not doing my homework. That was the type of student I was. That's a really important part of how I identified in high school. I was the smart girl. I was in the AP classes. I was the person who was going to be valedictorian and who was going to graduate from high school and go off to Harvard or Stanford or some big Ivy League. That was sort of the expectation set for myself, by myself, and that was also the expectation everybody else had set for me. I was in this pretty little box that people had painted for me, and that was kind of what I went into high school with. And so I kind of stuck with that kind of reputation throughout my high school career. Sophomore year was by far the best year I had. I had great grades. I definitely had some personal life issues with like relationships or friendships kind of go in and out, but my grades definitely never failed. I was still a straight A student. I'm going to start with my freshman year because that sort of intros the hardships I had. And so freshman year started off pretty well. I don't really remember much of how it started, but my 8th grade year I took a trip to the East Coast for a history trip, which was actually the same exact trip I just chaperoned on, which I have a video on. And there were a couple kids from my middle school that went that were also going to my high school, but the majority of them were from a different middle school, so I never really saw them again. Anyways, one of the, and I'm not going to name any names, but this is just part of the story for me, one of the kids who also went on the trip, who's from my middle school, was also a very smart kid. He was also in a lot of honors classes and was in my honors English class. And we were also very close with the two teachers who chaperoned the trip because they just really liked us, and we were, you know, low income, and they kind of saw us as kids that kind of could use their assistance, which was very true. And naturally, the other kid, he kind of like developed a crush on me, I think, and it sort of caused problems because I clearly only saw him as a friend and he didn't see me as that. But what ended up happening is he started smoking pot, and a lot of kids in my high school smoke pot. I do not judge if people smoke pot at all. It is something that's very common, especially in California, especially in Northern California. So it's very, very typical, and it's legal now if you're over the age of 21 or if you're over the age of 18 with a medical card. So whatever, you shouldn't be doing it as a 14-year-old kid because it's not legal at that point. But either way, I said, you know what, dude, you're my friend. Just be safe about it. Don't get caught. I don't care. If you need help, let me know. That was how I felt about it when he told me, and he definitely was one of my best friends at that point. And I guess very soon after that, he had been checked by my high school's administration. His bag was checked for marijuana, and luckily he didn't have anything on him at the time, not that I'm sure of, but he blamed me and told other people that I snitched on him and that I was the reason he got in trouble, which wasn't the case. I honestly, to this day, will say I never said anything to an adult or administration about him smoking marijuana because a lot of my friends did. I didn't really give a crap. I didn't, and I still don't. But the problem was that that painted me in a very bad light to a majority of people at my school. I was the smart girl. Everybody thought I was rich when I wasn't. I just presented myself in a positive way, and I got everything I wanted because I was polite to the teachers. Another thing about my school is that a lot of kids weren't raised with the expectation of being respectful and polite and caring about your teachers, which I definitely was. I naturally got very close to my teachers all throughout my life because I was a very motivated student, and I like to spend a lot of time with my teachers in order to make sure that my goals were set in place and I knew what I was going to do. Anyways, when that had happened, the whole school kind of saw me as the snitch, and in one of the classes that I shared with that boy, he had a lot of other friends that smoked pot in that classroom. It was an honors English class, and it was actually right after my honors English teacher's son passed away. So we had a long-term substitute teacher in the classroom once it had happened, and she really did not know how to take care of this because she was just trying to do her job and didn't know how to get involved with a conflict. Every day I would go into school, I'd go into that class specifically, and they'd sit right behind me and they'd call me a snake, they'd call me a snitch, they'd call me a liar, they'd call me everything that you really could to get under someone's skin, to the point where I just stopped going to that class. They'd try to convert me outside of class after we left. They'd literally try to threaten me, and it got to a point, like I said, I just stopped going. Literally started sitting in the office during my second period because I was honestly scared to go to that class. I am a small girl, I'm non-confrontational, and I knew that they were going to believe what they wanted to believe. And it got to a point where the vice principal, who knew me as the smart girl, noticed. He was like, you've been in here a couple days, why aren't you in your class? And I was like, I remember sitting in the office and just being like, I can't go. And he was like, why? I'm like, I don't feel safe. And so of course, as a vice principal, he pulls me into his office, and here starts the problem. There was one of the girls in the class, basically it was the boy and two other girls who tormented me. And the real problem, the real name caller was, she was really the main problem. The other girl was the more physically threatening one, who ended up getting expelled for other reasons anyways, but it left her to sort of be the one who really started to attack me. I told the vice principal all of this, and I told him, they are calling me all this shit. I can't go to my class. I can't focus because I don't feel safe. My blood pressure is spiked. My heart is beating every time I'm in that fucking class. I'm not going to go. What my school did in terms of punishment or for addressing these issues is something called Restorative Justice. And instead of expelling a kid for misbehaving, they would pull that kid and the kid that they had a situation with into a room with a mediator, essentially, to talk about why it happened and how it can be prevented. I really love that kind of point of view on addressing problems, but not as the victim in the problem herself. Every time I was in one of those circles, it was because I was the victim of someone else having an issue with me. And like I said, I was sort of painted in this light at my high school where a lot of people disliked me because I was so positively received by the faculty and by a lot of the adults on campus. It's a great theory of what they do, but it never worked. And so that, of course, started the months and months and months of sitting in a room with this girl or with this boy or with both of them, and them constantly saying, yeah, we'll stop calling her this stuff. And of course it never stopped. I had a lot of what I considered friends in those classrooms, but they would never get involved and would never defend me. And that was the hardest part, is I was super alone in this battle that I was fighting. I had nobody to defend me. I literally just had myself. And it got to the point, they'd say they'd stop, I'd go to class, they'd continue, and I'd literally get my stuff and I'd walk out of class. I didn't even care at that point. I didn't even care if my grade fell. I didn't. I was gonna let it happen because I wasn't going to put myself in that situation. And what eventually ended up happening is, at the end of the year, of course, we're not in that class anymore, go into sophomore year, and I don't have the boy in any one of my classes, but I do have the girl in my math class. Like I said, throughout my freshman year, it never really stopped. It took like 6 different times of administration getting involved for them to finally stop, because they had no other option than to like transfer the kids out of the class I was in, or just actually like discipline them. And so they finally got to the point where they stopped and just shut up in the class and let me do my work and get on with it. And then fast forward to my sophomore year, I no longer had the boy in any of my classes. I only had the girl in my math class. And in the math class, I had a lot more support. I had my best friend in that class who was very defensive of me, and she would really protect me. The teacher let me talk shit. Like, she was really awesome. She would let me kind of defend myself in class, and by sophomore year I had a little bit more confidence, so I was not afraid to call her a bitch in front of the whole class if she was calling me shit. And that just kind of happened throughout the entire year. She wasn't as well perceived that year either. I think her freshman year, that girl had a lot of popularity because she was new. She hadn't gone to our middle school, so not a lot of people had known her. And by sophomore year, a lot of people realized her game and stopped liking her as much. My sophomore year, like I said, was a really positive year for me. I had great grades, I had a great support system, and I don't think I had many issues that year, which was really nice. And then my junior year is really the main problem. The problem with that girl had stopped. I think she actually transferred to another high school. I definitely still had people who didn't like me just for being me. Those kind of immature problems sort of faded away, which was really nice. I went to my junior year, which a lot of people will say is the most important year of your high school experience. It's the most important for figuring out what you want to do, for establishing great grades to apply to colleges with, and it's just important because by then you're finishing up all the really important classes and your senior year is supposed to be a lot more smooth. And my junior year was really great for the beginning of it. I had a lot of rough patches in relationships, like romantic relationships with guys. I think I broke up with a long-term relationship of like 2 years, and then I kind of was in and out of a couple other ones with guys that just didn't end up working out, and that definitely can cause issues as a 16-year-old girl when you are going through a lot of emotional stuff, as well as trying to deal with like 4 AP classes and extracurriculars and all of that. It's really difficult. I also just got my license, which was a big deal. I was the first person, or one of the first people in my grade, to have their driver's license and have a car, and so I also took advantage of that a lot. When I wasn't feeling good, I'd leave. I wouldn't go and get my dad to sign me out, or I wouldn't get excused. I'd just start cutting classes. At my school, they had a super bad attendance policy, in my opinion, and I'm sure they still do. It was to the point where the tardy policy was more strict than the attendance policy, and so kids would literally stop going to classes rather than be late. I was never really late. I was always a pretty punctual kid, but I definitely took advantage of that policy, and so if I didn't want to do my homework one night, I'd be like, oh well, I'll just not go to my class tomorrow. And so that became a lot of a problem for me because I became cocky. I knew that my grades were good, and I knew my knowledge of the subject was really good. I knew I had a lot of power on campus in terms of administration and teachers liking me. And I will say I was a really great student. I was super respectful. I was really active at my school in terms of just extracurriculars and volunteering, also just in my community as a whole. I will say that the main problem for me my junior year of high school stemmed from me getting into an emotionally manipulative and abusive relationship with a guy. And that is something that is definitely probably its own video, honestly, but that relationship did sort of ruin my motivation that I had at that point. I was naturally burning out because I had worked so hard, so consistently my whole life for this goal of going to like an Ivy League college. By the time I got in that relationship, it just drained me. I was not ever being complimented. I was always being forced to do stuff that I didn't like. I was told that stuff I did like was stupid, and it was just really rough to be in that relationship. And I think that a lot of the adults around me realized that and kind of realized what was going on, but it was also not someone who went to my school, so they could never really address it how they probably would have wanted to. And I just got involved in a relationship that I felt stuck in, but was constantly trying to make work, and I was putting all my energy toward a relationship rather than to school. Second semester of my junior year, that's January of 2017, I also began running for a pageant, and that again was really, I was at this point in my life where I was just trying to fix stuff by doing good things, and this system, this program that I was trying to get involved in, which is one of the pageant programs, which I'm not going to state specifics on, like not state the specific program I was running in, looked really positive, and I really saw that as sort of an out for me. And I ended up winning the competition, and I ended up winning the title. There is yet another commitment that Stephanie made that is going to ruin her high school career. And I don't say ruin because I think that it really ruined my life. I just think that it ruined the path I was on. And so I had a ton of stress with that, which being a title holder in a pageant program is very, very difficult. You literally have no free time at that point. All of your free time, and all of my free time, was school, boyfriend, pageant. And I was working on going to a state competition for the pageant in order to go to nationals. And I ended up resigning that title due to that boyfriend. That boyfriend didn't like all the time I was spending with the program and decided to slander the program on Facebook to where they could see. And so about a week later, after he made this post that was eventually taken down, they give me the ultimatum of, you need to break up with your boyfriend or resign your title. And he threatened to post nude photos of me online if I broke up with him as a result of that title. So in protection of both the program and myself, I stayed with the boyfriend and resigned my title. I actually stayed with that boyfriend for an additional 5 months until I finally was able to break up with him. But by that time in my life, it was late May. My grades had dropped significantly. I would have had to repeat every class I took that semester because of how bad they were. I only attended about 40 days of school that semester, which might even be an exaggeration. I ended up going on independent studies because I was so severely depressed and was so anxiety ridden, and I actually did none of my work the entire time. My dad went on disability so he could take care of me because I literally wasn't even eating. I'm like actually getting emotional in this video, which is really upsetting for me, but that point in my life, like that April and May of my junior year, was so hard, and I'm literally crying. I hate my life. I know, I'm sad. It's a really hard time to talk about for me. My makeup looks really good. It does. Anyways, I was kind of faced with this point in my life where a lot of my shit was just falling apart. I was really likely not to go to an Ivy League at that point. My grades were awful that semester, and a lot of my teachers and stuff were trying to encourage me and just say, you know, you can write in your personal statement about that. You can make this up, you know? And at that point, I was so deep in what I had created for myself that I didn't even want to dig myself out. And like I said, I was depressed at that point. I was bedridden because of how mentally ill I had become from all of those commitments I was trying to make work, because I just wanted to have this, outer film for myself that everything was perfect when it was so not. And I really learned to be a lot better of a person as a result, and I'm so sorry that I'm crying, but it's just something that I do. I literally talk through my crying sometimes. It got to the point where I had to like basically drop out of high school. And so what I ended up doing, because I'm not a giver-upper, I ended up taking a proficiency exam and exited high school a year early. And that was basically the best decision I've made thus far in my life, besides breaking up with that boyfriend. So once I decided I was leaving the high school, and I was leaving high school in general, my life super drastically changed, and I think just for the better. I saw a therapist pretty consistently, about once a week, and I eventually was able to kind of I mostly overcame my depression. Anxiety is sort of something that I feel like you always struggle with if it's something that you struggle with, which I definitely do. The way my therapist explained it is that depression is sort of a symptom of anxiety, and it can definitely come and go. And for me, I was at such a dark point in my life that I was depressed. And if anybody is watching this that is struggling, I want you to know that it really actually does get better. And I was at a point in my life, I literally wanted to kill myself because my life like went so bad. And I'm crying even harder. But I look back a year from where I am today, my life is so drastically different and so amazing, and I'm doing stuff I love so much that I would have never expected when I was in that deep dark phase that I would ever be living this life, and I am. And that's what's so amazing. And I want to be someone for people that I can say that I was at that point. Like, I wanted to kill myself. I hated who I'd become and who I let myself become. And I'm at this point in my life, I literally love who I am. I love what I'm doing. I love who I surround myself by. And the truth is, you have to work for it. I had to go to my best friend's house and say, you're not letting me leave until I break up with this boyfriend. I broke up with him that night. I didn't even care if he posted my nudes online, because you know what? You're an asshole if you do that. And by that point in my life, I was in college. I was a semester in college, and I was 17 years old. And at that point, I think when I broke up with him was when I had the most confidence. And I also then just met my wonderful boyfriend, who I have right next to me right now, who is like one of my biggest supporters and loves me so much and loves me for me, who I haven't had that before. And I had a very, very great support system from then on. And like I said, I know I'm super crying. Oh my god. Wow, this is a in-depth Talk Tuesday. But I think that the important note is, if you do struggle with like a mental illness, or you do just burn out, you can struggle with it for a little bit, but you have to work for yourself. And that's what I decided. It's like, you have to work for your own progress at a point. And trust me, a year from now, it will so pay off, because your life will be amazing. I am pursuing my makeup artistry. I'm pursuing degrees and licenses in cosmetology and aesthetics. I am finishing up a college degree. I had to take a year off of that, and that's only because I felt like I rushed into college, and I definitely did. I left high school a year early as a last-minute decision, and then just jumped into college because I felt like I had to have a plan, which you don't. Anyways, I feel like I just want to get to the point of this video, which is, yes, my high school years were rough. I look back and I still talk major shit about high school because it was really hard to go through. And I felt like I worked so hard to make it perfect, and it crumbled for me. And I don't have a lot of friends as a result of what happened. I have one friend, and a lot of my friends out of high school either haven't spoken to me since I left, or have spoken to me very little. And, you know, you have to go through a lot of rough stuff in life to get to a really great point, and I thoroughly believe that. My life would not be what it is today without going through what I had. I would have just graduated high school had I not gone through what I had. I would have just graduated. I would not be with the man I am today, who literally is the best thing ever. I would not have the job I have. I would not be a year done with college. I would not have the goals I have, because I broke out of that box. Like I said, that pretty little box that was given to me, I broke out of that. I literally destroyed that box and made a new life for myself. And I have a wonderful family who allows me to do that, and my dad is a wonderful, wonderful dad, and I have a wonderful, wonderful support system. And if you do not have that and you need that, I want to say that I can be here for you, and you literally can DM me on Twitter, you can message me on Snapchat, whatever it is that you need to communicate with me, you can do that. But I just want to be that voice for you guys that says that I totally hit rock bottom at some point, and my life is very good for what it is now. And I'm only 18 years old, so I have a very big life ahead of me, as well as I'm sure any of my viewers do. And if you are not going through anything tough and you're just watching this to kind of learn more about me, I hope you have, because it was a really, really significant point in my life, and I'd be very happy to talk about other subjects like that boyfriend I had, as well as my mom's passing, which is a really hard point in my life. And anyways, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you need someone to listen to you, I am here. Or I hope this video helps anybody out there who's sort of going through a similar thing. Again, please don't let my video scare you out of high school, because like I said, my experience is very not typical, and I will say that I am responsible for what happened to my life then, because I allowed it to get there. Or if you're going in high school, just be smart with your decisions and continue to work hard, but don't burn yourself out, because that's the mistake that I made. And just love your life and be careful with who you date. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like me or you like this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.